Hey everyone, Jason here at Dice Camera Action. In an upcoming episode here on the podcast, we're going to be discussing the very popular game, probably one of the most popular the last few years, Dune Imperium. And of course, we're going to be pairing the Dune board game with the Dune movies from Canadian director and Canadian national treasure, Denis Villeneuve. And so Matt and I thought we'd add a little extra content and share our three personal favorite Denis Villeneuve films. This is like picking my favorite flavors of ice cream. It's next to impossible to do, but I'm going to give it a shot. Now, those of you familiar with Villeneuve, he's been on a bit of a sci-fi kick since Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, these two Dune films. But I'm picking three films today, my three favorite. Today, this is my three favorite. Next week, it could change. From three sort of distinct different genres from Denis Villeneuve. Number three, the 2015 film Sicario. Sicario is a brilliant, intense, multi-sensory cinematic movie experience from the harrowing opening moments to the final frame in which we are thrust into the world of drug violence on the US-Mexico border. Villeneuve and his team are so unflinching in this film in their portrayal of the brutality of the underbelly of the drug world, ramping up the tension throughout the film in a way that doesn't feel forced or manipulated at all. As he has done in some of his other films like Arrival and some earlier films, Polytechnique and Incendie, Villeneuve gives us a compelling female protagonist in Emily Blunt as an FBI agent working in an industry dominated by men, which include co-stars Josh Brolin, Benicio del Toro, John Bernthal, and Daniel Kaluuya. Roger Deakins, the great Roger Deakins, is a cinematographer here, and his cinematography in this film, I like to call it voyeuristic. At times, he puts us, the viewers, too close for comfort in the propulsive, harrowing action, while at other times, he gives us moments of respite by zooming out with breathtaking aerial shots. Kudos to the sound mix in this film as well, which adds to the tension of this fantastic film. My third favorite film from Denis Villeneuve is 2015's Sicario. All right, coming in at number two is the Dune films, Dune and Dune Part 2. It's really hard to separate them. It's like pie and ice cream. They just go together perfectly. Frank Herbert's 1965 classic Dune novel has been seen as the spiritual predecessor and a major influence on the Star Wars franchise. It was also deemed unadaptable to the big screen, although David Lynch gave it a shot 40 years ago with his flawed adaptation, which he has since pretty much disowned. Enter Denis Villeneuve, a lifelong fan of Herbert's novels, who has done what was seemed impossible, adapting the Dune book into this two-part epic, which feels both faithful to the source material, while putting his own spin and style on this enduring story. Dune Part 1 was simply breathtaking, a compelling introduction to the story, though it felt somewhat incomplete. And in the recent second part released earlier this year, Villeneuve has expanded the story and the world building in ways which are truly masterful and simply breathtaking. The mix of practical effects and CGI are so seamless. When I watched this film on my IMAX screen, I was so immersed that I forgot that Arrakis, the desert planet, and the sandworms beneath it don't really exist. Hans Zimmer, in creating the score, actually invented new instruments to give it an indigenous feel, which adds to the emotion of the film. And the ensemble cast, led by Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya, is simply picture perfect here. Especially enjoyable, I want to give a shout out to the performance of Javier Bardem in Part 2 as the passionate yet naive religious zealot. Villeneuve's Dune movies are masterpieces, and I simply can't wait to see what he does with Dune Messiah, scheduled for a 2026 release. So, my number two, Dune and Dune Part 2. All right, my number one favorite Denis Villeneuve film, without question. Going all the way back to 2010 for this, the Oscar-nominated breakout film, I would say, from him, which to this day remains my personal favorite. It's the film Incendie. As much as I enjoy Sicario, the Dune films, and many other Villeneuve films, the one that remains closest to my heart is his 2010 Oscar-nominated film, Incendie, which, for those of you unfamiliar with the French language, translates to fire or blaze. It's a film that's adapted from a contemporary live theater play. Incendie tracks the story of a son and daughter who, in a meeting with a notary after their mother's death, are surprised to discover that they have a brother and that their father is still alive. This leads them on a quest to fulfill their deceased mother's last wish to travel from their home in Montreal to the Middle East to put the pieces together of their family roots and the past life they didn't know about their mother. Incendie is the Villeneuve film that I believe has the deepest emotional core, as the daughter follows in the footsteps of her mother, discovering piece by piece the harrowing truths of her mother's past. The stories fluctuate between present and past as it hurtles its way towards what I believe is one of the most gripping endings ever in a film. Incendie is many things, but at its core, it's a story about the enduring love of a mother and a reminder that we don't really know as much as we think about anyone, even those closest to us. Also, all you Radiohead fans are going to love the needle drops in this one. There's plenty to admire in this film. I love seeing the early raw materials that Villeneuve is using here in his breakout film. He's made many great films since, but this one remains the closest to my heart, and it's my favorite Denis Villeneuve film. If you haven't checked it out, highly recommend watching Incendie. So those are my favorite 3 Denis Villeneuve films, at least this week. Stay tuned for our full episode on Dune Imperium board game and our deeper conversation about Denis Villeneuve's Dune films. So look forward to having you join us over at Dice Camera Action. Until next time, I'm Jason Tripp along with Matt Cousineau. Enjoy.
You forget so